Now we're on. Okay, everybody, we're at the next to last little chat here. Laura, if you'd like to sit in the cold corner, the other cold corner. Here, no, please. Leather-bound chair. We got coffee. We have had our third pastries for the day. Anybody need anything else? Grab it. We're gonna have a very quick and important and unfinishable conversation about state and federal opportunities here. I guess I want to start by, for those on Zoom, so I think we have a handful of folks, just kind of like setting the stage and noting some of the themes that we've heard today about how challenging the work of doing this food hubbing thing really is. And back at the very beginning, to share this sort of note that everyone here and on Zoom, I think, is here because we're sharing a commitment to some set of values that make it different than traditional business as usual work in the food space, whether that's cooperation through formal cooperatives, valuing the importance of local farms with food economy, or the environment that needs to sustain our populations for the long term. And we've noted that it's really hard for businesses that are committed to those values to deal with things like staffing challenges and access to capital, and certainly access to steady, larger markets that help a regional food hub like those we're visiting and talking to today scale. So if that's the context, we also want to note that for the last 2 years in this insanity we've been living through, there has been a newly brightened, somebody changed the light bulb on the spotlight of these woes in the traditionally huge but brittle system. And I think everybody here understands that in Washington, we're like super lucky to be in a state that has agencies that see all of that they are noting, they learn from it. At different levels, they're building momentum to incorporate the sort of work that's being done here into big, complicated, messy systems, and draw attention to the need for the alternative that sustain the values, the environment, and the people that feed the future. So we're super grateful to the three of you for being here for this conversation. And I also am just going to take the liberty before he leaves to give a big shout out to Chris Iverly in the back. Chris has been plowing the metaphorical field here for a long time, and it's, I think, safe to say that none of us would be here if you hadn't been a torchbearer. So thanks, Chris. Yeah. Nonsense. You've been really, really important. So thank you. Yeah, and take donuts. If your bag doesn't have 6 pastries, then you need to. Oh yeah. So let's turn to the future, or in some cases, the present, like opportunities that are here in our front yard lap. Right now, every state in the country actually is about to try and figure out how to navigate a huge potentially catalytic investment in local food. Big money from the USDA through 2 large programs that serve different, very complicated systems and populations, but has the word local food in the name of the program. That's never happened. So there's a huge opportunity right now. We also have the benefit in Washington State of a program that Annette's running of a separate additional set of funds for local farm-to-school purchasing. So the context of the values we're here to talk about and understand and engage with, looking to the future, is a ripe one. There's never going to be enough time to dig into all the details of the specifics of the program, especially for you operators that are in Washington. So just know if you have questions, follow up is the time to do it. But I'm going to turn it over to you, I guess you, Annette, first to start, to share a little about Washington State Department of Ag's Farm to School Purchasing Grant program.
Great, thank you, Elliot. You can go ahead to the next slide. I also threw in some quick slides here, not just on farm to school, but wanted to share all of the purchasing opportunities that are available, market opportunities. So this first slide just is a quick overview of some of the food assistance and emergency feeding programs with WSDA. We heard a little bit about some of these from Evan in the previous panel, so that was a great tee up for this slide. I do want to note that, so We Feed WA is probably, I think, the largest of these programs. It's currently contracted with 26 organizations across the state, including some food hubs, and will likely be funded again for another year, is my understanding. And so just something to have on your radar so that you could apply directly perhaps for one of those contracts with the state, or to partner with someone, an organization that has received one of those contracts to supply and distribute local food to people who need it. This next program, the Local Food Purchasing Cooperative Agreement, is one of the new USDA programs that Elliot just spoke about. This is to support the purchase and distribution of local food in Washington state, and to support supply chain resiliency as well. So with this, it's not a grant program per se. The way it works is that a state agency applies. WSDA is the lead agency for Washington, and we submit a proposal to USDA, and if that proposal meets the criteria, we receive the funds. What that proposal entails is currently in development. There will be some stakeholder input and sessions planned. Those are in development. But that's happening soon. It should also be noted this is one-time funding. It's about a little over $4 million over 2 years. So for those that are also thinking about long-term sustainability, that's also just something to consider with this funding that's coming through. So I'm going to spend a little more time here because this is my wheelhouse with the Farm to School Purchasing Grants. And the exciting piece about this is that it is ongoing, or we expect it to be ongoing. It was funded for the first time with a $5 million allocation for the current biennium. We just awarded last month over $1.5 million to schools and child care centers and summer meal programs for the purchase of Washington grown foods. So the way these grant programs work, it's the child nutrition providers that apply, and then they go out and they purchase food from Washington farms and then request reimbursement for those purchases. Food hubs are critical, I think, in this program. You may have a question about this later, but just in terms of being able to provide a consistent source of source-identified food, kind of reduce the burden on a lot of these child nutrition providers in working, having a single point of contact so you don't have to work with many, many vendors to source a variety of products. So a lot of really great opportunities for food hubs with the Farm to School Purchasing Grants. The way that the funding is structured, see a question, I'll just get you in 1 second. Just for for this biennium, funds are currently out from now through August, and then we'll have another round of applications opening this spring, and the funding for that is next school year, September through June. So one thing that I encourage all growers and producers and food hubs to do is to connect with districts in their area or child care centers. Even if they haven't received a grant yet, this is a good time to also let them know that this opportunity is available and that you are interested and available to partner and work with them on local sourcing if they were to apply and receive funds. Yes.
So my question was, for this program, does it provide money for just bulk commodity purchases, or does it also include value-added products?
Great question. We have set it up so that they can purchase, repeat the question. Yeah. So the question was, can grantees purchase just bulk commodity or value-added products as well? The answer is they can purchase both. So the requirement is that for any product that is whole or minimally processed being sliced, diced, frozen, that sort of thing. 100% of the product has to be grown, harvested, produced here in Washington. For value-added products or manufactured products, the requirement is that 51% of the product has to be from Washington. And we have a sample documentation form that the manufacturer fills out to show what percentage of the raw ingredients are grown here in Washington State. And that's something that we're receiving the first batch of expense reports from our grantees this month, and it's exciting to see just the breadth and variety of produce. Not just produce, I should say. This covers all products, so meat, dairy, eggs, value added as well, grains, flours, things like that. One of the questions that Elliot had prompted us with were, what are some of the things that food hubs can do to prepare? I won't go into too much detail now, but I just wanted to include this list of processed items. So selling into the institutional market, one of the things that are in high demand due to kitchen capacity, labor shortages, especially right now, are items that are already coming minimally processed or lightly processed for easier use. So this is from a few years ago, but this slide just shows the top products that are requested by schools in Washington to keep in mind when you're thinking about this market. And then with this slide, this morning during the food safety discussion, it was mentioned that while GAP is not required, it's a good idea to have, and we do encourage food hubs and growers to become GAP certified. It's not a requirement, but it is something that a lot of institutional buyers look for. And we have a program right now called, in partnership with NABC, Profiting from Your Pivot. So it's currently, the first class is up and running, and there'll be a second class next year. And growers that participate receive one-on-one technical assistance, support in preparing for a GAP audit, and reimbursement for a successful GAP audit. So again, a resource that's available to you and your growers to be aware of in the coming year. And then a few other grant resources we want to make sure everyone's aware of. The first are the meat and poultry processing grants. The small project grant application has closed. The large project application closes next week. And if you have questions, please let us know after this. And then the other one is the local food system infrastructure and supply chain grants. Lots of grants coming online. This is, again, we're still developing this program. I included a QR code, so if you'd like to provide input, we have a survey up that you can snap with your phone and get the link to that, or contact us and we can send you the link to the survey. This program is also still in development, but will be available in the next year. And then our contact information for later. Laura's gonna add.
Just some late breaking news that I got literally in the car on the way in. For the We Feed Washington program, the RFP, the request for proposals, is going to open on April 1st for the second year of the program, and I think it's going to be open for about a month and a half. For people who participated in that, or organizations that participated in that process for this past year, this is going to be different. So just be prepared for it to look a little bit differently. Where that was a request for qualifications, this is actually going to be a request for proposals. So if you're submitting a proposal, you'll need to kind of have your plan and your partners, products, that sort of thing, more fully described than maybe last time when you were just listing your qualifications. So watch for that. The other late breaking update that I have is for the, I know it gets really confusing because all these programs have the same words in their name in different orders. And they all have millions and different amounts of millions. But the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program, which is the federal money that goes straight to Washington State, and then Washington State uses that money. That's the new program that Elliot was referring to. We are going to have a couple stakeholder conversation sessions that are scheduled for the end of next week about that. And one thing I would just add to what you've said, Elliot, is that it is really exciting that the federal government is specifically, I think it's really exciting, is specifically highlighting local in procurement requirements and expectations. And I would say that particular program is around $4 million for our state. And our state already, through the We Feed WA program, through the Farm to School Purchasing Grant program, which is should be ongoing, we have invested literally tens of millions of dollars more than that. So just to kind of understand, where the money is flowing and what the opportunities are, I just want to let people know that I think that one's getting a ton of attention, but you have opportunities in Washington State beyond just that program. And I think that was sort of why Nat wanted to go into more detail on the farm to school purchasing opportunity, because that's money that schools have. They can get more of it into the future, specifically to buy Washington products. So for those of you from the Food Hub market diversification perspective who are worried about a potential cliff in opportunity with emergency purchasing programs that have come because of COVID and emergency food assistance that might be tapering, although frankly the need's going to remain for a long time, and so I certainly hope the funding continues for a while. Schools should be an ongoing market in Washington State. Really quick too, things that Washington State doesn't do but that you all should know about is at the federal level, the value-added producer grant application just opened. So for farms that want grants to increase operations and value-added, which includes value-added marketing, not just value-added food manufacturing processes, that grant is open right now at the federal level. The USDA grant that we've been waiting on to increase meat processing equipment and capacity also just opened at the federal level. And USDA just announced they're going to put more money into the local food promotion program, the farmers market promotion program, and the regional food system partnership program, which this grant is funding this activity now. So they have not released details about that yet, but when those open, basically what that means is there's going to be more money and hopefully slightly less competition for those grants. Okay.
Just a few things, an endless amount of detail for sure. And we will get some questions, and I hope like audience questions as well. But let's turn to you, Wendy. So you can describe, and I forgot to ask Annette and Laura to introduce yourselves as within your title and rank thing. But Wendy, if you can, after Annette, if you want to do it, and then tell us, Wendy, who you are.
Sorry, I forgot to say who I am. So my name's Annette Slonim, and I joined WSDA as the Farm to School Purchasing Grant Specialist. So my primary role is leading this grant program, and I work with. And I work together. I work at also Washington State Department of Ag, where I lead the regional markets program, which includes farm to school. It includes small farm direct marketing assistance. It includes our new meat and poultry assistance program and the grant that she mentioned, that Annette mentioned. And it includes support for farms wanting to learn more about GAP and good agricultural practices. And we've got materials on all that stuff in the back if you want to take it home with you.
Okay, Wendy. Who are you?
Good afternoon. I'm Wendy Barkley, and I work in Olympia with the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction Child Nutrition Programs. So we are the administrators, basically, of all of the USDA child nutrition programs. So there's, of course, the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program that are very well known and operate in schools. There are the child and adult care food programs that operate in child care centers and after-school programs. And there's the summer food service programs also that, of course, operate when school's not in session during the summer months. And then in addition to that, our office also administers the USDA food distribution program, which is basically USDA farmers they're commodity foods that the U.S. government purchases and then provides to state agencies like us to distribute to school districts through an entitlement process where they can purchase those funds using entitlement dollars. So kind of like monopoly money, I guess is what we call it. So hard to explain. So anyways, our office administers those programs, and they're reimbursement programs. So schools and childcare centers serve meals, and then they claim those meals for reimbursement through our offices. We provide all the training and technical assistance for those programs all too. Okay, but schools and childcare centers and things, it's a lot of local control there as far as what's on a menu and then the food purchases and things. So I'm here to explain to you a couple of other great opportunities that we have that will help support local purchasing. Okay, so supply chain assistance funds is the first one, and there's actually two different things with the supply chain assistance funds. The first one here that I have is some monies for school districts, and we received just over 18 million in federal funds from USDA that we'll be distributing to schools for purchasing of domestic agricultural products that are minimally processed. Okay. Each school district that participates on our program will get a base amount of $5,000 and then some additional monies on top of that that's based on their enrollment. We'll be distributing those funds directly to schools in July, and then they'll be able to utilize those funds to purchase the food products. But we see a good opportunity there for schools to be able to purchase Washington-grown products with that money, and we'll be encouraging that also. Let's see. I just want to mention, too, that state agencies had an opportunity to hold back 10% of these funds to purchase local agricultural products. Our state elected not to do that, to just pass the funds directly to the school districts, all of them, for their own purchases. And mainly our reason behind that is that we have operated for a very long time with USDA foods and our food distribution program. And so I think to turn on a dime to look and see how we can purchase Washington-grown products with that 10% of those funds is a little bit much for us at this point in time. And so we did choose to pass all 18 million out to school districts. Okay. Let's see. We also have local food for schools, and this one is really similar to the local food purchase assistance that Annette went over. But the problem is that we have absolutely no information yet on how this is going to work. But OSPI will be the lead agency that applies for the funds. It's non-competitive, so again, we'll have a proposal and we'll be able to get that funding based on approval of our approval. So these funds are meant to strengthen the food system for schools, helping with supply chain issues, and be able to use those foods for local Washington agricultural products. Okay, that's what I know at this point in time, and we should get some information at some point as to how this will work.
I sure hope for your sake.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've worked in this business for quite a while, and that's a lot of the times how it ends up, is that we get a little bit of information, but not enough to be able to give a lot of details. We have to wait. So, okay, well, this one's really exciting. Something that I'm excited about, too, is that we've applied for a USDA Farm to School grant. We should get some information this spring about whether or not we will get these grant funds. approximately 200,000. And this is exciting because it does allow us to look outside our box of our typical USDA food distribution system and look at how we can purchase local agricultural products for schools to use and how we can incorporate them into that food distribution system. And so it will be an exploration-based grant, okay, and we'll look at a couple of products that we could possibly purchase and then distribute. So, okay, and I gave contact information. We do have a dedicated Farm to Child Nutrition Program specialist to help schools and child care centers with their local purchases, and that's under recruitment right now, but I'm the person in the meantime that fields questions and can help.
Your standard do-it-all public servant. Thank you all so much for sharing the overview. I'm going to take the liberty of asking a couple prompt questions, and then we'll open it up. Is that more questions? I'm going to ask the questions in the opposite order that I do them at before. And each of you can just kind of popcorn it, but there's a lot of money coming from different ways, some of which is known, some of which is not known. And we also are recognizing a massive difference in the scale of an individual 2, 4, 10-acre farmer and the scale needed to feed, for example, all students in the state of Washington. There's a huge gap there. So I'm going to take a not so huge leap and guess there's also a ton of infrastructure that's needed to make that funding pool that WSDA has been charting for a long time beneficial to or accessible to some of those smaller producers. So what for that hard and soft infrastructure, and this is honestly a question for private, larger purchasers like food service management contractors in the Northwest Food Networks dealing with this. What is the hard and soft infrastructure that these kind of funds can help catalyze? A lot of it, I imagine, is about food purchases. But what can the food hubs do themselves as a business to prepare for that needed infrastructure, the trucks, the connection, and what do they need to be thinking about to access these opportunities in a meaningful way to help the state realize its goals? A lofty question.
Yeah, I'm gonna start. So I think some of the first things that come to mind, and starting off with the presentation this morning, is having really strong food safety plans in place. That's something that all schools should be asking for if they aren't, and is really important for the institutional market. So working with your growers on making sure that they have a food safety plan, pursuing third-party audits if that's feasible at this time, and being able to come prepared to the school market with that information. Source identification and traceability, which I think food hubs are naturally positioned to provide, and that's a huge value add over traditional distributors, but that is, for the farm to school purchasing grants, a requirement of reimbursement, is that we need to know where the food came from to ensure that it's Washington grown. So whether you provide that information on an invoice, so what does your invoicing look like? How is it on product labels or case labels? How are your products identified? Thinking about setting up those systems so that it's really easy for the schools that purchase your products to then turn around and report that to us. I think it's a little bit different, but marketing materials, I think, is also really important and a huge value add. If you're able to sort of develop, farmer profiles or other sorts of collateral that tell the story of farm to school, and where the products are coming from in the community, why that matters for schools and anything that they can help to promote your hub and the growers that you work with is a big value add as well. And then in terms of the actual product, we know that the growing season doesn't always align with the school year. So finding that fit, finding that match with, you know, some of the things that you can start doing if you've never sold to schools already is taking a look at school menus and seeing what's being served, building that relationship with a food service director even before you're expecting to make a sale, to kind of map out with them what they serve, what they need. And then light processing and value-added products as well, or thinking what's available different times of year. Mushrooms are a great opportunity. You can sell them all year round. Again, like grains, flours, things like that, kind of thinking beyond, a little bit beyond just produce in terms of what schools could use in their food service.
No, I can add. I think another thing that's important too is to understand a little bit about how the food service operation in the school works, what their delivery schedules might be, what their capacity for holding fresh product is, and even frozen product, and then whether or not they have a central kitchen. Do they do salad bars in schools, and also how do they wash and prepare produce also? What is their staffing and things too? That's helpful for you to know, and a good way then to market and then assist them in being able to utilize your product too.
So thinking a little bit beyond farm to school specifically, although that, because I think your question was also a little bigger than that. Although I think everything that's been said is good advice generally, right? In addition to food safety, invoicing, good marketing and communication materials about your products to meet your buyers' needs, I think your question was about how can food hubs potentially be prepared to be partners with state or other local agencies in projects that might be rolling out, or funding programs that have some value priorities behind them. And I think the buzzwords, which you've probably heard as resiliency, it's not really a buzzword, it's a real thing. But there is an understanding now, I think, that having some redundancy in our system and having systems that work at different levels and serve different purposes, or perhaps play different roles within our food system, provide resiliency that we need. And so I think some of these programs are interested in strengthening the more local and regional literal supply chains in order to build in some of that resiliency. So that does come down to infrastructure. And I think the software infrastructure is something that food hubs excel at, which is local relationships and collaborative approaches that provide entry points for smaller scale producers and a wider diversity of producers to access markets that would otherwise not be accessible. So that's wonderful, and that's a great way that food hubs can come and partner. There's also, though, the reality of hard infrastructure, like we heard about earlier, like a split reefer freezer truck, or trucks that keep operating, or coolers that are big enough. So that is very real, and that's what we are at WSDA very happy that the legislature gave us funding to make some grants available for local food infrastructure and market access. We're just trying to get our feet under ourselves to figure out how that can actually function in a way that's helpful, including that we don't have really control over the timelines that those funds have to be used, and we don't control supply chain disruptions for things like back-ordered trucks. So we're trying to take all that into consideration. But there's I guess what I'm trying to say is there's opportunities right now to try to build the hard infrastructure at the same time that you're building your own operational infrastructure, like functional invoicing systems, developing and talking and planning amongst yourselves so you can submit competitive proposals for some of the RFPs. And definitely whenever you hear about an opportunity that technical assistance is going to be provided, like take advantage of it. I mean, as you all know, filling out, submitting an RFP or filling out a grant proposal is a body of knowledge in and of itself, but you have partners. NABC supports producers and value-added producer grants, for example. PTAC is a really excellent resource for small businesses applying to government contracts at any scale. They are there to help you and advocate for you as businesses to take advantage of that. So it's too much, I know, sorry.
Forever. I'm going to ask one more quick one and then turn around, but this is sort of like a softball for you all. We talk a lot about with all of the hubs in the Northwest Food Hub Network and the others in the room, I'm sure feel that when we're out looking to the market for a signal, for example, when we're talking to a Sodexo, there's a program behind something that makes us relevant to them, or a Bon Appetit. There's a sort of a goal in mind on their end that we can present a solution to. So, the highest level, what do you think your agency's goals are? What would success look like in the spirit of developing these systems, and kind of as a supplier, a supporter of building that system? What's the target that we should have in mind for your agency? What is the goal that this opportunity provides in your mind to advance your agency's goals, and how will you measure that?
That's a great question. I'm going to speak more specifically to the farm to school purchasing grants on this one. So some of the goals that we have obviously are increasing the volume of local food being served in school meals, and there's a lot of ways that we can measure that. There's the quantitative measures of how many orders get placed, how many farms are being supported, looking at the specific identities or characteristics of those farmers and producers based on size, demographics, geographic location. There's like kind of lots of data that we're interested in collecting and looking at to see what the impact is of these grants. We've collected some baseline purchasing data from schools when they applied for the grant to understand, are they currently purchasing local? If they are, where are they purchasing from? Is it coming direct from the farm? Is it through a food hub? Is it through a distributor? We want to encourage more direct sourcing as much as possible, including food hubs in that work. And then strengthening the farm to school relationship. So, it is about getting local food on kids' plates, but it's also about understanding where that food comes from, how it contributes to the health and wealth of the school and broader community. I think, people do farm to schools for all different reasons, but another thing to think about is what are the school's goals? What are the things that they care about? And it can be really broad, kind of understanding, but for some it's about health, for some it's about more sustainability in the environment. For others, that could be serving better food in schools means that kids don't leave for lunch and then they don't come back late, and it solves all these other sort of ripple effects and problems and things like that. So rambling a little bit here, but those are the sorts of things that we're interested in pursuing with this grant. Also supporting, I think I mentioned this before, just more diversity of producers. So thinking about equity in a lot of different ways, racial equity for supporting underrepresented farmers and ranchers, while acknowledging a lot of the systemic challenges that contribute to the lack of producers that meet those descriptions, and whether or not the institutional market or school food market is always the right fit based on price points and scale and things like that. So we know that farm to school purchasing grants aren't going to solve a lot of those problems, but can help expand the market and be able to allow schools to offer a better price for local products. And then on the school side, on the consumer side too, we're also mindful of the end consumers, the students, prioritizing districts with higher percentage of students that receive or eligible for free and reduced lunch, where there's higher rates of child food insecurity. And then we're also encouraging districts to focus on culturally relevant meals and ingredients that are reflective of the students and communities that they serve.
Well said, and shared goals with our child nutrition programs also. And just to add to that, our programs, there are a lot geared towards kids that are eligible for free and reduced price meals, and so have food insecurity at home. And so ensuring that they have access to healthy meals, fruits and vegetables, increasing fruit and vegetable consumption, and then really also realizing that our programs benefit all kids in schools, regardless of their income, and to just make kids healthier in general. Okay.
I think in addition to those, again, I'll just move out of farm to school a little bit and speak a little more broadly about some of the additional values driving some of the funding programs. I think there, certainly in Washington State, we're very interested in where we are doing purchasing or where we're funding purchasing through contracts or subcontracts to make sure that those are benefiting Washington food producers and Washington growers where possible, and that purchasing is having the added sort of multiplier impact in our local economy. So that is an important thing that we want to, an impact that we would like to be able to find those win-wins. If we're doing a lot of food purchasing and we are such an abundant and diverse agricultural state, let's build on that. We certainly are very interested in ensuring that food access programs meet people's needs. And that may mean serving people in new and different ways than food access programs historically have. And that means new partnerships and not just relying on historic sort of food access programming and relationships. So again, food hubs have a great opportunity to really work at a community-based level and build relationships there. I mean, if this is an opportunity, it's something you have to do, but that would be in alignment. Additionally, making space and helping with market access for new and beginning producers, for producers of color, for immigrant and refugee farmers, for women farmers, for LGBTQ trans farmers. I mean, all of these groups of socially, well, the USDA uses a horrible, in my opinion, horrible term called socially disadvantaged producers. But our interest is in making sure opportunity is available to a wider range of producers as well.
Great. Thank you so much, all three of you. Let's open it up. I'll be a question repeater, but does anybody have any questions for our state agency folks?
I'm the LSTA. Where the stakeholder has, where is that information from?
I'll repeat the question. How to be involved in the stakeholder gathering for the local food purchase agreement program?
That is an excellent question. I'm not sure I got that piece of the update. I know for anyone who is involved in the We Feed WA program in any way, you should receive an email today about that. I imagine it will be on the WSDA website, but I don't actually have the information myself, so I don't know.
Any others? I'll ask them. Someone has them. Fine. Think on it. there's, in the federal programs, both of them seem to define local in a particular way. And Laura and Annette, you both talked about Washington grown being a moniker. We've got hubs right around Washington, Vancouver. That's a lot easier to draw from Oregon in some cases. And our network extends, of course, to Montana. There's a specific clause at local in the USDA side, state boundaries or the 400-mile radius from the point of distribution. Do you foresee in either of these programs an opportunity for supplying that extends beyond the state borders, recognizing fully, of course, I'm sure you do, that the food shed doesn't stop at the Columbia River? How is the agency managing that gray area, or what are you thinking about that?
For the LSPA, I don't know. I think that would be a great thing to explore in the listening session or the stakeholder session. We would be able to, and perhaps even required, to follow what the USDA outlines in the program description. So I know it can be really confusing to try to understand how government works. And we have so many different rules and regulations and requirements and parameters, and a lot of them have to do with where the funding is coming from. And you might encounter this when you work with school districts as well. They may say, well, we have these rules for if we do this thing with you, but we're going to have these other rules if we have to do these other things. And that's because they're using different parts of their budget, and those funds kind of come with different rules. So at the state level, we have the same thing. So this is a federal program with federal money flowing to the state. Basically, the state is kind of like the contractor to the feds, to the USDA, and so we kind of follow their rules. So for that one, we might have more leeway. For the farm to school purchasing grant that Annette has been talking about, she's managing, those are, well, they will be state funds going forward in the future. And so we've been focusing procurement from Washington producers for that reason. But we certainly, I don't want to speak for Annette, but I know Annette has been hearing from people in border areas about trying to loosen that a little bit. And I think we'll just have to look into that.
Yeah, Wendy's like, I'm still waiting to hear about my program.
Well, I think there's a lot to be gained and how we end up operating it also. So I think WSDA with the local foods will be in touch and see how that goes, and probably model and be able to ask some of the same questions and explore some of those things too. Yeah.
Montana, so probably going to go through the minutes, but we've been in conversations actually and what was really interesting was procurement policy popped up. And procurement policy can be a real barrier to a local procurement policy is the lowest bid. So are you guys getting a sense of that? That might be behind this procurement? Is it data or are you looking at more than some awards, other organizations, profits, or food hubs to deliver that?
So the question is about the structure.
Yeah, who's doing the procuring? The question is, who's doing the procuring with the local food purchase assistance program in different states, and what that might mean for procurement policies. That might vary a lot state to state. For this particular program, USDA is basically asking states to submit their proposals. So they might look really different, which is kind of cool because it's a little bit of an experiment nationwide to see how different states do it and what works. And Wallace Center, which I think a lot of you guys are engaged with for their food hub support, they've been really involved in tracking this program as well. So I imagine that they'll probably be continuing to sort of be a good resource sharing place for learnings from this program. But that aside, I'm not directly engaged personally with the LSPA program at Washington State, so I don't want to misspeak, but I think we are looking more towards contracting out or subcontracting out rather than doing direct procurement. That said, one of the things we work with a lot in farm-to-school procurement, which can also have some of those barriers, is helping people understand how much flexibility they have, even if low cost is an important or deciding factor. Because there's often opportunity to write, well, you have to write your product specs or even your service specs into what you're procuring. And if I'll just use schools, if what the schools are procuring is that we want to be able to serve 15 different varieties of apples throughout the year of varying sizes so that we can put them in our snack program and encourage kids to learn about different varieties of apples, cost may still be the bottom line, but they have to provide that product. So, you need to have qualified bidders who can provide what you're asking for. Does that make sense? So even though the price may be the bottom line, it may not be that the producer who can sell the cheapest apple in the world is going to actually be able to meet the needs of that solicitation. Did I get that right?
I don't have anything to add.
The gentlewoman yields the balance of her tongue. Which just points to the values. I'm going to note that and we'll come to your question. Like the kinds of values that are underneath where we're overlapping. It's so important to isolate, like be really clear on both sides of it to write a good spec. It boils down to that. But anyway, go for it.
I guess I have like a number of questions. One is like, how much of the funds that schools apply for that they say they need or can use through these grants are actually like, are you guys seeing like full utilization of those funds? That's the first one.
Okay, so we awarded the grants last month, and they have until August to spend down the money. So we're starting to see purchases being made. It's too early, I would say, to say, I can tell you in August whether or not they've been fully utilized. But a lot of our work going forward now is supporting schools in making sure that they fully utilize those funds. So part of that is coming to events like this and making sure that you all as producers and potential vendors know that these programs are out there so that you know how to contact the schools, and I can provide more information on that. And then providing a lot of one-on-one support with our districts to make sure we're tracking their monthly expenses, making sure that everything they're buying qualifies for reimbursement with the grant. And then we'll be working really hard to make sure that they spend down every last dollar before August.
That's great. Yeah, I guess I was more just like historically for these like kind of programs in previous years. I mean, this isn't the first time schools are getting, funding. So just overall utilization of funds. So we'll see, I guess, with this newest program. The second one was just like how these programs are structured as like both a farmer and then also like Ford Food Hub trying to like coordinate this and distribute to schools and like encourage that is like, why are these grants structured to rely on the public sector to do that work, to apply and then to report and do all that stuff? It would seem like it would make strategic sense to put that burden on the distributors and the farmers to report back, and then the school saying they need something, bringing that stuff to them. The schools don't have to cash flow that product, and then monthly the distributors are reporting that to the federal government. It seems like it's making the private sector apply for this to be able to give to the public sector instead of having schools that are already understaffed, underfunded, right? People need to be paid more, appreciated more, right? We all know that. It's the story's old as time. That's why these programs are existing, to feed them. Why don't you make it Andrew's job to, why don't you make it the Montana growers' job to get the food, to get those programs applied to them instead of the public sector using their own resources to try and get the funds that are already from the public sector, from the taxpayer. Put it on the private sector to do that. Seems like a lot of work, like backwards.
I feel like I want to record you as the first time in history that a producer has ever said, give me more paperwork. If I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, well, so number one, this is the first time ever in our state we have ever offered the Farm to School Purchasing Grant. So this is totally new. And to my knowledge, schools have never, in Washington State, have never had this opportunity before. So there have been other, there are other school purchasing programs that we have tried to help schools understand how they could use those to purchase local, but they haven't been set up for that purpose. So we have helped schools say, hey, look, there's this new federal program that lets you buy more fresh produce. That's actually, if you do a bunch of legwork, an opportunity to specifically make some money available to you in your budget that you could use to buy from local farms. But there's never been anything like what we're doing now. Yeah, I'm not sure I understood the rest of your question. I mean, we're basically taking public money through taxes and other sources, and funding public programs with it, and asking them to use it to buy from private sector entities with some goals in mind for the program. And we are asking them to do some of the tracking, but actually there's lots of ways that you all could help them a lot to make that easier. For example, having documentation if you make a manufactured or value-added product that your stuff is from, like dried apples are a great example. Those apples are grown in Washington, you know, 100% of them are Washington grown. Having that information ready for the school, and even going to the school and saying, hey, do you guys need a healthy snack, you know, product? Have you thought about this? We have one, and we meet the requirements of the WSDA Farm to School Purchasing Grant Program. That would help them a lot. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not looking for more paperwork, so don't quote me on that there. I guess my thought process is like, what distributors excel at is they connect growers and buyers. And what farmers don't excel at is connecting themselves with buyers. That's why 99% of food transactions happen through a middleman, because that's what they're uniquely qualified to do. And that's, I guess, finding ways, because it's like, this is like the second time I've heard about this, and you know, I get all the emails and it's great, but I look at it and I'm like, oh, I have no idea how to get at this, I don't know how to access this, and it's just like being able to have a way where the distributors are a lot more involved in these programs and are facilitating those discussions and interactions. So like the schools actually use those fundings to buy the local products, not just stuff that's in Washington State from a 5,000 acre, 10,000 acre apple farm or whatever that doesn't need that business, but you've got one that's like 10 miles down the road, and that's like, they'd love to be your business. Because I think the whole point of doing all these is to establish new relationships. I think that's the secret agenda, is that you want these, when these programs eventually go away, you want schools to keep buying from the local people, and it's like, oh, these are better, oh, this is better quality, and it's worth the 3 cents more. Like, that's the long-term goal, right? So facilitating those proper local sustainable food system interactions is the challenge. So.
I'll just say too, I mean, to that point, that's why I think food hubs, and I'm not sure if this is quite what you're getting at, but this is why food hubs are so valuable in my mind for institutional sales and schools in particular, because like you said, for a farmer to go out and do all of this work directly with the school, some can, but not everyone can. And on the flip side, a food service director doesn't want 20 new vendors that they have to manage. Their business office certainly doesn't want 20 new vendors that they need to manage. So the beauty of the food hub is that aggregation and distribution, being able to provide higher, good quality, higher consistency and volume of products depending on the school's needs, being that single point of contact, so they only have to communicate with Evan or Andrew or one person. That can provide all the information about the farm, provide that consistent reporting so that it is turnkey. There's kind of some national conversation just around tracking farm to school sales and how do we take the onus off of the school districts to report that information, and working with distributors, local food hubs, and national to try and, you know, track this information some other ways. So there's conversations beyond farm to school grants going on around that, but nationally where we see the best data and the best reporting, I would say, on what is the impact of farm to school is really when it comes down to these types of incentive programs, because we're able to put in requirements that say, you have to tell us if you want to get the money where it's coming from. But then to kind of speaking more to the solicitation piece as well, and procurement policy, districts were sourcing local before these farm to school grants came online. The last USDA farm to school census showed that schools reported about $11 million in local purchases in Washington from 2019. So we've added $5 million with this grant program, which is almost a 50% increase. We do hope that that'll accelerate local purchasing, but we knew it was happening before from, you know, very motivated food service directors and exceptional farms out there, and that we hope that this will just continue to grow and add momentum to it as well.
We're gonna have to wrap it up because we're coming up at time, but I honestly don't think I could have asked for a better last question and conversation as a segue to this next section. But we have a lot of work to do, and there's systems that we're all building and data that you want that we have and conversations that we're both having that we could amplify for each other. So can I get a round of applause for our state agencies being here? Thank you so much.